In the town of Willowbrook, there was a saying, "If you talk about witchcraft, you'll bring bad luck." And this is exactly what happened to some poor souls who just so happened to be accused of it. But while the trials themselves were over in a flash, their haunting cries still echo through the town to this day. Welcome back. I'm here. And today, we're going to look into the tragic case of the forgotten witch trials of Willowbrook. Willowbrook was once a very normal and peaceful town until one day when all of that changed. In 1647, Salem Village, which is now known as Danvers, became overrun with a series of misfortunes. Crops failed, people fell ill, and livestock died. And after a while, they started to believe that someone in the village was a witch and was cursing them. This is when they turned to Reverend George Burroughs, who was a well-respected minister at the time, and asked him to find the witch. Burroughs then began by having 3 young girls examined. He believed that these girls were the vessels of the devil, and that if they were cleansed, it would stop all of the evil plaguing the town. While attempting to exorcise the girls, he realized that there was more than one witch in the town, and that there was probably a whole coven of them. So then he went to the governor and told him what he had seen and heard. The governor agreed with him and gave Burroughs permission to seek out the witches. Burroughs and his deacons then gathered up several men from the church, and they began questioning the women of the town, trying to find out who was involved with the devil. Their first suspect was a woman named Elizabeth Howe, who was the sister of Burroughs' wife. She was questioned, but she denied everything and told them that it was all lies. Still, though, they weren't convinced, so they tied her up and tortured her for information. She finally broke and confessed, implicating several other women in the town, and with that, the hunt began. They arrested 19 women and 1 man on suspicion of being a witch, and they brought them to trial. But unfortunately, those trials didn't go very well. After all, since the trials were held in private, no one could keep an eye on what was happening or make sure that justice was being served. And as it turns out, not only were the judges and jury extremely biased, but also the accusers were given free rein to say whatever they wanted. Also, everyone was led to believe that witches were able to change their appearance at will, meaning that even if you looked innocent, you could still be a witch. Because of this, the confessions that were extracted through torture were seen as reliable and trustworthy evidence, which is absolutely insane. During the trials, the accused were tortured to death, and they confessed to crimes that they didn't commit, thus giving the court what it wanted. In the end, 8 of the accused were found guilty and sentenced to death. Those 8 were Martha Carrier, Rebecca Nurse, Sarah Wilde, Elizabeth Howe, Susanna Martin, Mary Parker, Ann Putiter, and George Burroughs. The townspeople saw these 8 as dangerous threats to society and showed no mercy. They dragged the condemned outside and hung them to death. And to make things worse, after they were dead, they cut off their heads and displayed them on pikes as a warning to any other witches in town. That was the last straw for many people in the community. Many people began to speak out and say that these trials were wrong and that they had made a mistake. But the damage had already been done. These 8 innocent people were dead, and nothing could bring them back. People started to feel remorseful and ask for forgiveness, but it was too late. And as the years passed, the trials were forgotten about, and everyone moved on with their lives. For a while, peace returned to the town, but it wasn't to last forever. Just a few years later, a new series of misfortunes struck the town, and they again blamed it on witches. This time, though, they were smarter, and they were better prepared. They still had the same biased judges and jury, but they knew that if they had the accusers examined by doctors first, they would have stronger cases against the accused. So that's exactly what they did. They took the accusers, mostly young girls, and had them examined by several doctors. All of the doctors said that the girls were fine and that they were telling the truth. And with that, the judge ruled that the accusers were indeed telling the truth. Then they had several people arrested. Their first target was a woman named Margaret Scott, who was a well-respected member of the community. The townspeople believed that she was a witch because she was different from the rest of them. They thought that she was weird. Because of this, she was arrested and brought to trial. The prosecution claimed that she was a witch, and they said that the accusers were proof. But really, they were just jealous of Margaret's lifestyle and wanted her gone. Margaret was a strong-willed woman, though, and she fought back. She told the court that the accusations were ridiculous and that she was innocent. She denied the charges against her, but it didn't do her much good. The judge ruled that she was guilty and sentenced her to death. She was taken outside and hanged to death. Afterward, her head was cut off and put on a pike as a warning to other would-be witches. They didn't stop there, though. They went on to arrest more people and hanged them, too. They hanged Margaret's daughter along with Alice Parker, Elizabeth Howe, Dorothy Talcott, and Mary Easty. Soon, there were no more supposed witches left to hang, and the trials came to an end. Once again, the townspeople thought that they had gotten rid of all the witches, and they enjoyed another period of peace. But sadly, this peace didn't last. One day, a young girl named Mary Walston started having strange fits and convulsions. The townspeople believed that she was being afflicted by a witch, so they called upon the Reverend Burroughs to help. He tried to cleanse her, but it didn't work, and so they decided to try something else. This time they sent for a doctor to examine her, and he determined that she was suffering from witchcraft. With that, the trials started up again. This time, though, they took a different approach. They sent for more doctors, and they even had lawyers defend the accused. They also recorded the trials and allowed spectators. At first, this seemed like a good idea, but it quickly got out of hand. The crowds grew rowdy, and the trials became a circus. The accused were given no chance to defend themselves, and they were often interrupted by the crowd. People started to wonder if this was really the best way to handle things, but it continued nonetheless. In the end, 2 women were executed. They were Alice Parker, who had already been hanged, but they brought her back for more, and Mary Parker, who had no connection to the case, but was brought in simply because she had the same name as the previous accused. She was completely innocent, but sadly, she didn't get to live long enough to prove it. And with that, the trials ended. Finally, people started to realize that they had been wrong. The accusers were exposed as frauds, and the innocent victims were finally given a proper burial. But by that time, it was too late. The trials had taken a toll on the community, and they would never be the same again. To this day, people still whisper about the trials that happened in Willowbrook. Some say that the spirits of the accused still linger around town, waiting for justice to be served. Others say that the trials were a warning to those who would practice witchcraft. Whatever the case may be, the trials of Willowbrook are a reminder of the dangers of mass hysteria. Thanks for watching.